Okay, everyone. I hope that your Labor Day weekend either is going or did go well. I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon so that it can be available to you on Monday morning as you, for whenever you happen to go back to D2L. Uh, this week, first of all, I hope you were able to engage your imaginations fully with questions about atomism and the way that this idea presented to us by philosophers and poets becomes basis for scientific principles and our pretty much our understanding of the material universe. So I'll have more to say about that once I finish reading your discussion postings to begin Wednesday's class via Zoom. This week we're talking about Aristotle, and Aristotle's a big one, and he does not come easily. He does present some challenges. My first suggestion would be to go to the content page, to stop this video, go to the content page and take a look at some of the video materials that are available to you. The quick overview of Aristotle's philosophy in its totality. The fact that Aristotle, beyond talking about reason and logic and divisions of knowledge in the cosmos and things that he talks about in your textbook, he's also prone to talk about friendships and literature and poetry and ethics and all manner of other things. So my first suggestion would be to stop about 2 minutes, let's say 2 minutes and 5 seconds, and come back to this, but take a look at those video materials first. I'll pause here at 2 minutes and 10 seconds for you to get started. Okay, hopefully you've taken advantage of that effort. You've seen some overviews of Aristotle and some clips that compared him with Plato. And the key to keep in mind with that is that Plato is a priori, prone to a priori reasoning, where he's dependent on logic and intuitive sense and reason to make sense of the world. Aristotle, in contrast, is a posteriori. He's much more reliant on experience and evidence and conclusions and logic, which also present us with a way of understanding the world. Hopefully you've acted on that first suggestion and you've taken a look at some of the materials about Aristotle. The second suggestion I have is be patient, because Aristotle can be pretty tough sledding, particularly with regard to the materials in your textbook. There are reasons for that, but it's important to keep in mind that Aristotle spoke in Greek, and people wrote down what he said in ancient Greek, and that language sort of remained dormant for a while, and then it was picked up and translated into multiple other languages, and it reflects a world that is very much in the past, and so it's opaque for that reason, and difficult for our modern thinking, but it's still worth the effort. And you've already seen that people regard Aristotle's philosophy very highly. So just jumping right in, Aristotle is prone to a posteriori uh, patterns of thinking that rely, again, on experience and conclusions and logic. And the fundamental feature of his thinking is the chain of logical steps that we refer to as the syllogism. And that's the process by which people deduce certain conclusions and embark upon logical chains and work with the basic premises towards a conclusion. So in your notes, and I hope you have those open and available, and if you don't, please do so. That'll be handy as we move forward. But if A then B, if B then C, if C then D, therefore if A then that leads us to conclude that D is valid or safe or true. And we start with premises and generalizations, and we lead to a conclusion in a process of deduction, which is a top-down approach to arriving at truths and facts. The rest of this video will be basically some observations about the individual readings. And I won't say so much about the second reading for Wednesday by Edward Grant, but it has some lengthy passages from Aristotle that we'll look at. But I want to leave that for later in the week. Just the first assigned reading, structure and motion of the heavenly bodies. That's obviously the geocentric view, which both connects with and contrasts with Plato's cosmology. The key idea here, and this is an important Aristotelian concept, the prime mover, which is sort of a godly force or origin at the center of the universe and is responsible for planetary motion. So there's some other things we can say about Aristotle's cosmology, but those are key concepts in that reading. The second reading, changes, natures, and causes. That's probably the most important reading, and for our purposes, it might be some tough sledding. I do wish that you just sort of plow through it as best you're able. And he talks about the nature of particular things, what they do in and of themselves. It is one good analogy is the way he talks about seeds. The nature of the seed is to grow and to generate new life, but something else enables the seed to disperse and to relocate and to perpetuate the species in another place, and that's ultimately the goal of the seed to replicate the species. He also talks about four causes: the material, formal, efficient, and final causes. The video that you might have looked at, the slightly longer one, talks about that in some detail. He uses the analogy of the sculptor creating the sculpture, and you could also apply that to the idea of the doctor healing the patient, using the patient's own curative abilities and combining them with medicines to produce the result of healing. Another important or interesting concept is the idea of the man-faced ox progeny. You've got a picture of that rather disquieting image in your notes. And also Aristotle talks about the different kinds of teeth, how they all have different, the nature of the tooth is to do this one thing, but individual categories of teeth have different kinds of functions. So the arguments here are related not only to evolution, but also to natural selection and have a wide variety of other applications as well. Okay, so just the next couple of readings. The scientific inference reading, where Aristotle distinguishes between sophistry, which is basically a term meaning fancy argumentation, and simpliciter, which is a legal term. I had to look it up the first time I encountered it. It means unconditionally, or I like to use the slightly more complicated definition, that which is plainly or clearly evident. And here Aristotle is interested in what makes for facts, how we arrive at the point where we recognize something as a fact through verification, through logic, and through demonstration and experiment. Finally, the last reading, divisions of nature and divisions of knowledge, also represents Aristotle's attempt to understand cognitive process. Here he comments on the points of view of other philosophers and challenges them and offers us further observations. And again, the analogies he draws with seeds, which grow and become something very different than their original state, and teeth, which have different functions and serve different roles within their their specific function. Those are useful analogies that he discusses there. So beyond his preoccupations with logic and ethics and reason, Aristotle is also recognizably a scientist. We can see that he's speculated some about the order of the universe and has done some work that we would associate with astronomy. But as we'll see on and talk about on Friday's class, we also can identify some of his work as that within the field of biology. And that just very quickly brings us to the second reading, which I'll assign after Wednesday's class, from Edward Grant's book, History of Natural Philosophy, where he talks about Aristotle and explains why Aristotle is so difficult to read and why he sometimes challenges us, and the process by which we have created throughout history this figure of Aristotle, when the possibility is also that others have contributed to the body of knowledge that Aristotle is given credit for. Final point, there's a very important passage about Aristotle recording what he sees in the development of a chicken egg over multiple days, and that really captures Aristotle as an a priori scientist, relying on observation and facts and experiment to lead him to very specific deductions and then ultimately conclusions. So that's how we understand Aristotle. I hope that introduction is helpful. The notes will be available for your review, and we will talk in more detail about Aristotle on Wednesday's class. So I look forward to that meeting, and you should see the links to gain access to that Zoom meeting available on the course homepage. Okay, have a good rest of your day or evening or whatever the case may be, and I will look forward to joining you all on the computer screen on Wednesday.